All right, so here's our update after doing our polishing. Our countertop is most of the way done. Most of the manual labor is done at this point. It was a lot of work to get it to where it is right now. And it's certainly not as nice as factory polished granite or any of that. You gotta like the imperfections. And I suppose concrete can be as perfect as the factory installed stuff, but I'm imagining that requires a pro to do it. We in our DIY, it has plenty of imperfections and character. We did get a little bit creative with it, and I mentioned before my little copper pieces that I seeded into the surface of the concrete when it was curing. It mostly worked out. I think it came out really cool. But we did have it was my fault. I put it in a little bit thick. We had some problems where some of them pulled out and created here, I'll show you over here, created little pits, a pitted area where it's low. I don't know, we may end up filling that with epoxy or something later, or maybe we leave it, I don't know. But that's the reason that I ended up going with some stain. Prior to staining it, those pitted areas were lighter in color than the rest of the concrete. So it looked really weird. It was a very, very obvious mistake. So I decided to add some stain. I picked a navy blue and a little bit of black in it to do almost watercolor vein type areas. The contrast between the regular gray and the stained areas is going to be a lot less once we seal it with tung oil. We're using tung oil because we figure well, one, it's non-toxic and it's, essentially organic sealer. And two, it's like you're staining you're purposefully staining with oil the whole surface. So, in theory, any splatter that we get of oil from cooking or, whatever shouldn't stain it. I don't know if that'll actually be true or not, but we're going to try and see if it works out. We're also going to put maybe beeswax or something as a wax buffer as the surface to further help keep stains away. It's also been hardened with one of the reactionary sealers / hardeners. Same stuff we used on the floor. Creates I think it's a silica gel when it reacts with the lime. I'm not really sure. A little tricky to use. You have to plan out your last polishing grit, at least your last polishing grit after you've done it, or you end up with kind of a funny surface. So it does need to be, it says it doesn't, but it does. So far we found with both times that we've used it for this countertop and the floor, it needed a final polishing after it was applied. All right, so this is how we did our polishing. I got my little Harbor Freight $30, it's actually a buffer, and it's dying. Hopefully it can limp its way through the rest of our project here. I still need to use it at least one more time on this countertop to do the buffing with the wax. It can easily be replaced though, but its wiring is not doing well, hence the cord being taped kind of funny. But I purchased grinding pads. We used this around the edges of the floor as well with a little pad. This little guy is 4 inches, this one's 7. And then I bought the polishing pads and discs and stuff for it on Amazon. The other thing I bought on Amazon was we did the polishing dry, because we're not in a situation where we can run a garden hose the whole time that we're polishing and just flush away the grit onto the floor, because we're inside. And I mean, I suppose we could do it, but it would be just a disaster. So instead, I opted for this little guy here. It's supposed to be universal for angle grinders, but of course I'm not using an angle grinder, so it didn't fit it. We ended up being able to just put some little shims in here and then tightening this, and it worked out great. I think it fell off once and we had to redo it during the whole process. And then we just kind of jury rigged a couple of shop vac hoses together with some tape, and it was great. Little gray thing slides so that you got a flat surface you can go up against. But I started off with wearing a mask, thinking that there would be a lot of dust even with this running with the shop vac, and there wasn't any. There wasn't any dust at all. Like, it was great. It worked perfectly. We put our shop vac out the window so that it wouldn't be exhausting any fine particles into the house, because the shop vac is not a HEPA filter. And yeah, I can't say enough to our little, like, and that was cheap too. I want to say that was like $25, something like that. All right, so we're almost there. Next up to do is some tung oil, and we'll see what it looks like. And then after that dries and cures, I think it has to cure, we'll probably do a wax buffing for the surface. Our little curb, we're calling it a curb, the little backsplash area that all the outlets are in, our building department requires us to have outlets in the kitchen every 24 inches. So we didn't build the outlets into the exterior surface of the dome. So we decided to just pour this concrete backsplash thing as a curb that was deep enough to put in boxes. It worked out pretty well. I mean, we had to kind of, create these weird forms to do it. So, there's like, you can see little lines and stuff where our forms were. But overall, I think it came out pretty good. We may be covering this up with tile or stone or something. So I didn't go crazy with the polishing. I polished it enough that it can be easily wiped down and cleaned, but I did not try to get out all the little like seams and things like that. It just didn't seem worth the time, because it would have been hours and hours and hours and hours. It was already hours, but it would have been, like a full, probably 40 hours to do it. I don't know how many hours it would take. A lot. And I opted to not spend my life doing that for something that we might cover up. And I can always change my mind. Over here is our little soapstone insert as a hot plate area next to where our range is going to go. And then this little blank spot here is we have a teak cutting board that just slides in there. That way it can be removed and washed off if you need to. All right, so I will do another update once we do the tung oil, and we'll see what it looks like. I've never used the tung oil before, so I don't have any idea what it's going to look like, but hopefully it works out.